because of these trends and all the Western world has put upon us, like the trends and the ideologies that have been shown, like celebrities, they show off their figures and stuff, and like these influences.
Yeah, so there's a lot of influence. Don't you also think that it's quite expensive to sort of get hold of modest clothing? I mean, what are your views on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of girls, personally from my experience, I'm trying to dress modestly. I'm trying to cover myself, but finding these modest clothes is just really hard, because they're not easy to access, because they're really most of them are expensive.
Yeah, I've come across
and
that.
Plus when we go like shopping and stuff, of course we're not going to find Islamically acceptable clothes in like these supermarkets and stores, and it's just really hard to just find proper clothes to wear.
That's true. I mean, what other challenges do you face when it comes to modesty in your Western culture?
There's many challenges, like I'm always criticized for what I'm doing. A lot of girls are criticized, actually. We're trying our hardest to be good enough, but it's not easy, and a lot of parents and like the older generation say, why don't you wear shalwar kameez or like proper like traditional clothes, but nowhere in the Quran does it say you have to wear shalwar kameez or anything.
So I think that's where they sort of bring the culture into it, don't they? So it's not really based on Islam, it's their sort of cultural views, what they've been brought up with, or you know, if you're wearing shalwar kameez you're fully covered, but I don't think that's always the case, is it?
A lot of the traditional clothes and like shalwar kameez have been westernized as well. Like a lot of them are very short, and like they have become more revealing. Like if I go into a store to buy a kurta or something, they're just hard to find, because they're revealing. They have like sheer sleeves,
and like the trousers are quite, I think all the trousers are quite short, aren't they? So yeah, it definitely is a struggle. Now, if I was to put a scenario forward to you, and I want you to give me your sort of honest views on this, and if I turned around to you and said to you that my daughter doesn't wear traditional clothing, would you class that as modest?
Nowhere in the Quran it does say we have to wear traditional clothes. There's 4 purposes of clothing: comfort, beauty, where it makes us look beautiful, makes us look pretty; comfort, where we're nice, we're relaxed, we can sit comfortably. Comfort, there's beauty, there's also protection, so we're protected from the heat, we're protected from the cold, protected from any harm, and we're covered, so like, and nothing is showing, like no skin. And nowhere in the Quran it says we have to wear traditional clothes. We can wear whatever we want as long as we're covered.
Yeah, I'd like to add to her point. Many countries they've obviously got different standards for clothing. And like she said in the Quran, it doesn't mention that we should stick to a specific tradition or culture in terms of clothing. I mean, as long as it meets the 4 principles like Madiha mentioned, and if they're not tight and alluring, and they're not meant to only attract attention to yourself, and they're following the principles, then I think it's fine. Islam teaches us, as long as you're covering yourself, as long as you're covering that criteria, everything should be fine.
So obviously, from what you're saying, would you sort of say that then Islam is it's a universal religion, isn't it? So it's accepting of different cultures. You know, there's different sort of clothings all around the world. So it's not necessarily you know, Islam isn't for let's say, for argument's sake, just for Pakistanis, if you're wearing shalwar kameez, you're a modest Muslim. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So that's the problem that we're facing in this day and age, because I know I come across that a lot. You know, if you're wearing shalwar kameez, then it's like, yes, you know, you're dressed modestly. I think the older generation are still struggling to get to grips with that. But I think your younger generation that are coming in now, you're more inclined towards not the culture, but the Islam side of things, aren't you? you know, and you're getting all your knowledge.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think with certain young girls, like trying to become more modest and changing, like 12, 11-year-old, maybe they're trying to become modest, and people are just ridiculing them and judging them because it's just not easy. It makes them not want to become more modest. They think, what's the point? And they would want to they would just stop, and they just, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, so that's something that it's like a problem, a barrier that they're facing into bettering themselves, because they're still constantly being criticised by people who have that concept that, okay, she's a young girl, she's not wearing shalwar kameez, she's not modest. And that's obviously what you're trying to say, is that's where the youth of today are thinking, do you know what, I might as well give up. I might as well not try any longer.
I think upbringing plays a major role in how we act towards modesty. For example, if you're taught at a young age, like the specific ruling and how to cover properly and wearing a hijab, obviously it's your own choice, but if you're taught these principles at a young age, when you come to your teenage years where you're faced with all these challenges and you're faced with these desires, it's easier for you to choose.
You're well equipped then, aren't you?
Yeah, and it becomes second nature for you to choose what's right and wrong.
That is true. So excellent, ladies. It was nice having you both here today. That was the first part of our podcast. I'd like to thank our audience for joining us, and we will meet you after a short break for part 2 of our podcast. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Please help me, ya Ilah.